What's up, everybody? Welcome back to a full breakdown of my latest track, which was a rescore of the Superman trailer. If you haven't checked that out already, you can go ahead and click one of these things over here and check that out. I'm going to go ahead and get started right away. So we're going to first look at the initial treatment for this track, which starts off basically with just piano, choir, and one synth patch. So let's check out what that sounds like. All right, so there you have it, right? So one of the things I wanted to highlight is why I decided to go ahead and use piano with choir and that one synth lead. For starters, I used the choir because I thought it would give it a nice contrast between the epicness, quote unquote, of the climactic part of the track, but I also thought it would lean on to and emphasize the humanity of Superman, especially emphasized from this film. His humanity, his love of all things life was really highlighted in this film, unlike any other Superman film other than the early ones, with Christopher Reeves. And so, yeah, I just wanted to highlight that aspect of it. Now, the use of piano was just me going back to my main instrument. I'm a piano player, mainly, among other things, and so I really wanted to go ahead and have that piano. It's something that could be used as a delicate treatment over something. So I used that mainly as a little bit of the melody, but also a chordal accompaniment kind of. And then I also added a lot of reverb to that track. I will talk about the mix a little bit later, but yeah, I added a lot of reverb to that track. Now, me using the synth lead over here was actually me kind of doing an ode to my Haitian roots, especially for modern Haitian music. Compa, they have a lot of synth leads, and the synth leads, in my opinion, are almost always played in a way that resembles the human voice, what a human vocalist could do. And as someone who loves to sing as well, especially gospel and R&B, two genres of music that really incorporate a lot of vocal technique. I like when I can use a synth in a way that kind of resembles what I could do, or what I would do, or what someone could do or would do if they were singing over this track. And also, in this sense, it also reminds me of what an organist might do, yet again in a gospel setting. So let's listen to the synth lead by itself as it enters into the composition. Right, so even that little drive, so like that adds, instead of just going straight on the straight on the quarter note rhythm, I kind of add a little bit of syncopation to it, which to me gives it a real emotional human feel to it. And then I have this little riff at the end. Again, outlining the chord, the harmony. All right, so immediately after that, we also do get to hear in the full composition some guitars, some synths going on here and there. So I'm gonna go ahead and now play the overall synth track for that beginning portion. So one thing to keep in mind is when you're composing a piece that's short, whether it's 1 minute or 3 minutes, but it's one cohesive idea essentially. To keep that level of cohesion within the track. You want to, hopefully, you can. I'm not saying you have to follow this rule, but for me, I'm always thinking about, okay, what am I doing at the end of the track, and how can I somehow reflect what's going to be there at the beginning? Because I don't want certain instruments to just come out of nowhere unless it adds to the epicness in this case. But I also want to, like I said, to be a little certain level of cohesiveness, and so the guitar is a main component in the climactic section of this piece. So I also added in here at the beginning, right, in a more reduced, simpler treatment, but nonetheless, it's still here. So that way, when you hear it at the end, it's not a shock value in terms of like, oh my goodness, I didn't even hear this guitar coming out of nowhere. That's something I learned over the years of composing. I'm not saying this is a hard, fast rule. I'm just saying this is something that I try to follow with certain elements of a track, especially for a short track. One other thing is when you focus on just the woodwinds, you're going to hear that the bassoons come in a little bit early over here. And that's just to support that melodic line that we heard earlier from the synth. Again, something so simple like that really helps to define the character of this track. So moving on to the middle section of the track, here's where you find now more orchestral arrangement. So I'm going to go ahead and play that for you. I'm going to have the woodwinds soloed, the melodic percussion soloed, and I'm also going to have the timpani because that's part of it, and the strings. So as you can hear right there, we have violin 2s actually panned to the right. So I'm kind of doing a little bit more of a modern, non-traditional panning system or seating system. Where I have the violin 2s to the right, I have the violin 1s still to the left. I also am using the clarinets here to kind of double this background line. It's echoing the harmonic line that we heard earlier with the da, 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 da. And as you can tell from my notes here, I have everything basically orchestrated out before I even go ahead and move to that actually MIDI production side of things. I have my notes here. So what you hear now is the viola staccato patch just chugging through this ode to the original John Williams, you know. Dun, dun, chicka, 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 dun, dun. So let's listen to that with the harp. Funny story is I originally had this a little bit shorter and kind of going straight into it, and I just added one more bar of the chicka 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 from the violas, which in my opinion really helped to just better arrange the track. All right, because I did feel like it was rushing a little bit, and so what I did was I added another bar of the chugga chuggas, okay, and then I also after the harp run, or glissando, I added in the little bass stabs, okay. So let's hear that one more time. Okay, so there you have it again. We have the melodic line that's coming up top. Starts off with the flutes, and then the higher violin ones come in as well with the oboe. Then finally we come into a little bit more harmonic material where the cello comes in, the bassoon comes in, and adds that right, that little line at the bottom. Then finally we have, and I'm going to show you guys soon, but we have some more harmony over here starting at bar 22, where we have, it shows 4 lines, but it's really 3-part harmony. Just the one of the notes is doubled at the bottom of the bass, right? So here's what that sounds like. Okay, so we're gonna stop right there. Now, as you can hear all that flourish going on with the harp, glissandos, but then also the woodwinds are kind of carrying that little melodic line. What's actually happening with that is that the brass section is coming in there too. So I'm gonna go ahead and play that with that. Right, so there you hear I'm basically having a conversation between the horns and the trombones here. The horns are typically seated a little bit left center in an orchestral seating, and then the trombones are typically seated a little bit right center, a little more to the right than right center, but nonetheless. And so to get them to all come out to be a little bit more idiomatic to writing for orchestra, but with MIDI mockups, I try to sometimes every once in a while do these things where I have them really having their own moments to shine, which could happen obviously. And so I have the horns doing one line here and then the trombones doing another line here. Another reason why I really try to emphasize the trombone lines here is because at this time of writing this track, I was really trying to incorporate a little bit more use of trombone writing, and not in the way they're typically used in film scores, which is just for block chords or for thunderous, low, brassy, bad guy theme. No, I was also trying to just use it in just a normal melodic kind of way. So yeah, that's why I did it the way I did it, with the horns on one side playing this little line and then the trombones on the other side playing their little line. So as you can see, like I said, horn, trombone, horn, all together, right? They're all together playing this line now with the little brass stabs towards the end with the flourishes. Then there's a little pause, okay? All right, so now we finally get to the ending, okay? I'm gonna play the ending first without this specific element. You're gonna know what it is because I can't hide it from you technically, but I'm gonna play the ending first without the organ, okay? And then I'm gonna play the ending with the organ. And I just want you to see the how much of a difference it makes having that organ in, doing what it does, which, by the way, I love. Like I said, I'm a church boy at heart. I love the organ. It's another instrument to me that, even though it doesn't sound like a human voice, it can do what human voices can do, and I love that aspect. All right, I'm still leaving out the choirs, by the way, but yes, let's listen to this ending section with just the strictly orchestral instruments, tuned instruments. Okay, so quite a few things happening here. Number one, I am echoing through and through that melodic line, right? That little motif, I'm using it all throughout. Orchestrationally speaking, there are times where I wanted to cut through, right? And so I have at certain times it cutting through with the woodwinds coupled with the xylophones. And so that could be heard right over here. So that's just a trick right there that you can use if you want a melodic line to stick out a little bit more or over all the orchestration that's happening. You can add xylophone to it or some type of percussive instrument that's going to help it punch through the mix. I could have used a piano technically, but I wanted the specific timbre of that xylophone with the flute. I think that's a really beautiful, tasteful combination, and it also reminds me of some old school stuff that John Williams would have done. So yeah, so that's what I have there. You can also hear yet again that same motif being echoed in the horns towards the later section of this track. Right, it's kind of tucked into the mix when everything's fully playing, but it's just one of those things that I wanted to add in there, um, just again to echo in that motif, right? Okay, so now let's go ahead and hear that same thing, but with the organ. I mean, listen, I can't even help but smile. Like I can't contain it. I love that. I love the way the organ comes in with those chords and that upper melodic, little riff. It's just, in my opinion, it's just great. So yeah, it's a huge difference in my opinion. It helps really add the weight of what's happening on screen too. By the way, because I took some clips from the trailer already that was already existing, and then I edited it together to fit a certain kind of storyline, and then I made the track. Then I edited the video a little bit more so that way it would fit within the time frame of the actual track. But yeah, I was technically scoring to picture in a sense, and yeah, this organ just hits differently. One other element that I don't want to forget to mention is the use of the tubular bells. If you want epic stuff, just use tubular bells. I mean, you don't want to use it like for every single note of the epicness portion of a track, but it does help to use it maybe for, once per bar. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and look at how this all sounds when you add in the choirs at the end. So the choir here is helping to play the melody, a little bit of the chord, but mostly I'm trying to bring out that melody. Towards the end, we hear that the melodic material being sang by the choir actually transfers to these little punchy stabs that are going on with these strings. Dun, 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 dun. They're technically triplets, right? But the choir is doing dun, 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 dun. Okay, so moving on, finally we have what I call the synth elements. Now, in retrospect, some of these things are not fully synced, like I have the guitars in the synth element track. Sometimes how I organize these things is also how I treat these things in the mix. And so I'm treating this like as if it's a synth because it's going to be more in your face. It's not going to be processed the same way with the orchestral stem groups. So let's go ahead and listen to just the synths. First of all, that little, you let your guitar pitch bend, it hits at the right time. You know what I'm saying? So it's like you do certain things when you're programming, or in this case, if I had live musicians playing, I would say, hey, save that pitch bend for that ending chord because it needs to be emphasized. It's like, whoa, something crazy is going on, right? I love that so much. We're going to play that one more time. So yeah, just gotta love that stuff. Here's something that I have going on here. Is I have a vital patch playing just a synth bass. It's just just going over the root notes for each. Well, I'm not gonna say the root notes because some of the harmonies actually inverted, but nonetheless, it's going over the lowest note that I want to play. And I actually had to put the volume down. This is a common trick in modern film scoring where they use some type of sine wave, super low sub bass kind of tone in a synth to help beef up that bass note. And it really is an awesome trick. But I did have to bring down the volume quite a bit of it because again, you just want it to be more so felt than heard. So here's what that sounds like on its own. You're gonna need headphones. So again, just to be mostly felt, not necessarily heard. Okay, moving on now. I do want to go over what's happening with the strings at the end by themselves. So let's take a look at that. So after the middle section where we have that pretty strictly orchestral elements going on, what we hear now is some melodic lines, some accompanying lines, really, should I say, counter melodies happening here, and they're being played by cello. Sometimes they're being played by the violin ones, violin twos, etc., etc. So here's what that sounds like. So remember I told you earlier that the violin ones and violin twos are being panned a little bit more in a modern way, where the violin ones are on the left, which is traditional. Violin twos are actually on the right side this time. So I did that to help balance out the higher frequencies of this track. And I also did that because sometimes you just want to have high notes on both sides. I don't know, it just feels like it's a little more balanced sometimes in this way, and so that's why I went for it. So even though they're both playing the same notes, the violin ones, violin twos, as you can see in my notes, they are still being panned left and right, and so therefore you kind of feel like you're hearing it from both sides of the orchestra. So if you saw my shorts, you'll know that I was going hard about this. When I was piano sketching this all the way through, I felt like it was very churchy and hymnal to have that little walk up. But I left it in there because I love it, and yeah, it's gonna be in there. I'm the composer; I get to choose what I want to do, right? So yeah, so that's what's in there right there. You have the cello kind of walking up a line, and you have also some of the, I believe that's the violas helping out with the harmony up there too. Now that we got to hear that, I'm going to go ahead and let you hear the ending section with the choir and strings alone. So you can hear how the choir and the strings really have a symbiotic relationship in the sense that they're helping to double and support each other in different ways. Okay, less reverb again added to that choir patch, a little bit more than usual, just because I don't know, I just felt like I wanted it to ring a little bit out more. Okay, so moving on, I'm gonna go ahead now and play for you the entire percussion section, which there's not really a lot going on here with the percussion section. I'm talking about the untuned, by the way, but I'm gonna go ahead and play that for you, and I'm gonna also add in those quote unquote epic drums towards the end later on. So here's what we have going on. By the way, just a heads up, this is the first note is a crescendo, roll of a timpani, and this is happening basically right after that opening sequence with the delicate treatment of the piano and the choir with a little bit of synth. So that right there was actually a swell, right, with the systems and the cymbals, that leads us into the now epic climactic ending section. And so we have basically down here going on a lot of cymbal hits. Might seem like a minor detail, but again, that velocity that you're using, make it intentional, right? Don't just press notes or click in notes, however way you compose and orchestrate, whatever, right? Make it real, make it feel real. So for that section, and I know for a fact that's for that chord, that thunderous chord, so I made those cymbals crash hit really hard, right? Versus the rest of them, it's, it could probably sound like a mezzo forte or forte kind of thing, because cymbals are quite loud. But that one extra section is like really emphatic, a hit. So again, everything should be intentional when you are composing out your music, even if it's in a DAW. Okay, so now I'm gonna add the epicness part of it. So yeah, just some epic stuff. You know what I mean? Doesn't get much better than that. So yeah, that's really all we have to say for this track. I hope you've enjoyed this breakdown. I'm gonna go ahead and play it one more time for us from the beginning. If you have any extra questions from me, please shoot me a comment down below. And yeah, without further ado, happy composing, y'all. Take it easy. Peace out.